welcome to another episode of Antiquarians Anonymous. Today I'm going to talk about angels in medieval Western iconography. Now I could waffle on for hours on this subject, but to make a manageable video I'm going to give you an introduction to one aspect of angelology in medieval art, and in further videos I might expand on the subject. Today I'm going to focus on the celestial hierarchy, how medieval people understood angels to be ordered, organised, and how they operated. I would look at where those ideas came from, and I will then explore with you two examples in late medieval English art that are focused on that theme. Now, the primary source for the medieval understanding of angels and how they were organised and operated is a text originally written in Greek called Principalities Hierarchias, translated into Latin as De Celesti Hierarchia, and known to us in English as On the Celestial Hierarchy. This seminal work on angelology is associated with the name of St. Dionysius the Areopagite, an Athenian philosopher who was converted by St. Paul to the Christian faith in the 1st century AD. The work is not in fact by him. Scholars now think that it was probably written sometime in the late 5th or early 6th century. Now, in the Western scholarly world, dominated by source-critical interpretations of texts, we generally consider the author of this work to be a bit of a fraud, and he is generally known as Pseudo-Dionysius, fake Dennis, if you like. But to think of this author in that way is to misunderstand how texts were produced and received in the early Christian church and in the ancient world in general. It seems really odd to us living in a time where intellectual property is sacrosanct and plagiarism is a cardinal academic sin. But writing in the style of a famous man was a common rhetorical device in the ancient world, and the early church fathers who accepted this work as authoritative understood that. They weren't duped by a forger or a fake. They were well aware that this work did not represent the ideas of just one man, but was a distillation of ideas of an intellectual school of thought within the church, one that perhaps grew out of the thinking of Dionysius and had received some traditions from him. The work was very popular in both the Greek-speaking East and the Latin-speaking West, and came to be considered the settled mind of the Church on the matter of angels and their organisation and function. In the West, in the 6th century, it was championed by Pope Gregory the Great, Gregory the Dialogist, and by Isidore of Seville in his Etymologiae in the 7th century. Pseudo-Dionysius' ideas were known in medieval Britain primarily through a work composed in the 13th century by Jacobus of Orgein, the Archbishop of Genoa. Known as the Legenda Aurea, the Golden Legend, it was a hugely popular work in late medieval England, and was even translated into English from Latin by Caxton at the end of the 15th century. Orgein was primarily a compiler of hagiographies, the lives of the saints, from various sources, and the ideas in his section on angels are taken directly at his own admission from Pseudo-Dionysius, though he had also read Gregory's account of it too. So, on to the meat of the matter, and in order to look in detail at the ideas of Pseudo-Dionysius and how they are translated iconographically, I'm going to explore with you two particular and very important works of art. The first of these is the Rood screen at St Michael's Church in Barton Turf in Norfolk, a screen that was painted sometime between 1410 and 1430. It has painted figures on the dado, the bottom part of the screen, of the celestial hierarchy, along with some other saints. The second work of art is in a fragmentary condition and has been reconstructed in the 1960s, but is still very important indeed. It is a window of the Orders of Angels dating from around 1440 in All Saints, North Street, in the centre of the medieval city of York. I'm going to use these two important works of art to illustrate the concepts laid down in the celestial hierarchy. So what were those concepts? Well, taking the biblical account of Scripture as the starting point, the school of Pseudo-Dionysius concluded that the bodiless powers of heaven, the angels, were divided into 9 orders. These orders were in turn grouped together into 3 levels or hierarchies, what Dionysius called Phaneia, which means manifestation. Each hierarchy or manifestation had a distinct purpose in relation to God and creation. This organisation of the angels rather neatly echoed the Trinitarian nature of God. Each of the manifestations are united in their action, but each order within a manifestation has a distinct function with respect to that action. Just as in the Christian conception of God, there is one God with 3 persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, who act together but have different roles in the economy of salvation. The first hierarchy was called the Epiphaneia, the upper manifestation, and was made up of 3 orders called the Seraphim, the Cherubim, and the Thrones. Their whole purpose was to worship God without ceasing and to minister directly to him. The Seraphim, the highest order in this manifestation, has a name that means the burning one, for they are so focused on God that they are aflame with the fire of God's love. They are constantly in motion circling God. At Barton Turf, the Seraphim is represented by an angel who is radiant with fire, with red feathers and red wings, holding a censer of burning incense, standing within the clouds of heaven. The second order, the Cherubim, has a name that Dionysius argues means perfect knowledge. And with 6 wings and many eyes, they hover before God, praising him unceasingly. They are filled with God's wisdom and his light. At Barton Turf, the figure of a cherubim is radiant. He is covered with golden feathers, with 3 pairs of red feathered wings covered in eyes. His hands are raised in adoration as though he is in the presence of God, and the divine light of God radiates from rays behind his head. The third order, the Thrones, primary purpose is to be in the presence of God and to bear him, to carry God in heaven and to provide a place for him to sit. At Barton Turf, the angel representing the Thrones is shown with some of the attributes of kingship. He is dressed in a royal robe, holding the scales of justice and standing beside a golden throne. Again, with 3 pairs of wings, he radiates with divine light from being in God's presence. Now in the All Saints' North Street window, we see the 9 orders of angels in a great procession leading groups of men of different ranks. The orders of the first manifestation lead different groups of clergy. The Seraphim are shown leading the highest clergy, bishops, cardinals and popes. The Cherubim lead other dignitaries such as archdeacons, canons and prebendaries of cathedral, all of whom are denoted by their wearing of fur garments. The Thrones lead academic clergy, fellows and members of university colleges. The second hierarchy, the Hyperhaneia, the middle manifestation, was made up of the Dominations, the virtues and the powers. Their job was to govern the lower angels and protect the created order, though they weren't to interact with men. The Dominations at Barton Turf are represented by a figure who is quite difficult to interpret. With 2 pairs of wings, he is dressed in a bishop's garb of a chasuble over a dalmatic, with a triple tiara on his head and with a sceptre in his hand. Is he a pope? Is he an emperor? Or is he both? In any case, his garb represents supreme power, and the Dominations' role in the hierarchy is to command, to give orders to the inferior angels below them. The role of the virtues, Dionysius understands, is to put God's saving power into practice and to rise above the challenges inherent in that, and they are particularly associated with the performance of miracles. At Barton Turf, the angel of the virtues has 2 pairs of wings with blue feathers, and he holds a sceptre of power. The role of the powers is to drive off the evil that opposes God's rule. Their job particularly is to fight Satan, to keep Satan bound and tied, and to repel the power of evil demons. At Barton Turf, the angel of the powers is again double-winged and is shown dressed in full plate armour. He has the devil tied up with a chain, and he is subduing him with the power of a whip. At All Saints' North Street, the angels of the second manifestation are shown leading groups of prominent lay people. The angel of the Order of the Dominations is dressed in a royal robe and holds a sword. He leads a group including a prince, a king and an emperor, the latter shown with a triple tiara on his head. The angel of the virtues leads a group that includes a man with a jewelled circlet on his head and one in a fine robe. Perhaps these represent noblemen. The angel of the powers is dressed in full plate armour with a banner, and he leads a group of men including some clergy and prominent lay people. The third and final hierarchy, Hypophaneia, the lower or under manifestation, are the principalities, archangels and angels. These are the celestial beings that are concerned with the realm of human affairs. The role of the principalities is to look after human provinces or states, and the angel of the principalities of Barton Turf is dressed in the garb of a duke. He's wearing a red and gold fur-trimmed robe and has a coronet of gold on his head. Now, Gregory the Great caused some confusion in his account, mixing up the role of the principalities with that of the virtues. And here, the angel of the principalities carries in his hand the urine flask of a doctor, representing the healing power of miracles. The archangels are given charge over smaller groups of people and cities, as well as acting as the messengers between God and man. At Barton Turf, the archangel is shown dressed in full armour, with a sceptre in one hand and a sword at his waist, stood within a walled city, overshadowing it as though defending it. The lowest order is the bog-standard angel, if it's possible to have a bog-standard angel. These were given responsibility for individuals, with each Christian man and woman being assigned to the care of an angel as a guardian of their soul. The image of the angel at Barton Turf is shown very movingly caring for those in his charge. He towers over 2 naked figures representing the souls of a man and a woman. With a shield at his waist and a spear in his hands, he protects them. At All Saints' North Street, the lowest manifestation is shown leading a procession of ordinary men and women. In this window, the same confusion between the virtues and principalities is shown as in the Rood screen at Barton Turf, with the angel of the principalities carrying a chrismatory, a box containing the holy oils of unction used to anoint the sick. This angel leads a group of men, the good burgesses of York and their wives, including one woman in an elaborate dress carrying a basket. The archangel holds a trumpet and leads a group of middling folk, including a priest, perhaps a chantry priest. All Saints employed quite a few of those. Our bog-standard guardian angel leads a group of ordinary men, women and children, including an individual carrying a satchel with tools, and a wonderful little detail, a man holding up a pair of spectacles to his eyes. So let's recap. According to Pseudo-Dionysius celestial hierarchy, there are 9 orders of angels that are organised into 3 hierarchies, what he calls phaneia or manifestations. Each phaneia or manifestation has a particular role in God's work, and each order a particular job within that role. There is the Epiphaneia, the upper manifestation, the Seraphim, the Cherubim and the thrones, whose purpose is to worship God. Then the Hyperhaneia, the Dominations, the virtues and powers, who rule all the other angels and oversee creation. And then the lowest hierarchy or manifestation, the Hypophaneia, made up of the Principalities and the Archangels and the Angels. These are the celestial beings that interact with men and women. I hope you got all that. I always think that the answer to the reductio ad absurdum question, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, is surely this: none. They're all far too busy doing other things. Thanks very much indeed for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like what you've seen on this channel and want to keep updated every time there's a new video, click the subscribe button below and you'll be given a notification when there is new content. In the next few weeks, I'm going to be launching both a Teachable site and a Patreon site where there'll be even more content for you to subscribe to and full-length 10-session courses on medieval art and architecture. I'll keep you all posted when that launches. Thanks again and bye for now.